What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. It is week 8 of fantasy hockey. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to try to condense it a little bit more this time around. But just real quick, I want to shout out my X/Twitter at FiredUpFantasy. A lot of up-to-date information on there on deployment, my opinion on certain players in certain situations. So I would highly recommend following me on there. And also my Discord community. We have a bunch of people in there chatting fantasy hockey, giving out advice, myself included. The invite link is in the description. With that being said, let's start off with the most games and light nights this week. It's a very tricky schedule because we have American Thanksgiving, as you guys can see on the left side of the screen. Monday, Tuesday, and Sunday are light nights, and Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday are very heavy nights. There's no games Thursday, so that's why the schedule is a little bit complicated. But in terms of the teams with the best schedule this week, we do have 3 teams that have 4 games and 2 light nights. Not the best compared to other weeks, but it is the best for this week. So the streamers are going to come from these teams. These teams are the Stars, the Capitals, and the Senators. You might want to pick up some of these players for the entire week. We're going to talk about the streamers in a little bit, but with that in mind, I want to give a shout out to Fantasy Roundup. Don't you hate it when it's Sunday and you have no ads left and you want to pick up a player for the next week, but you can't? If you're a fantasy sicko like me, you might set an alarm for 3 a.m. to get the player that you want. But unfortunately for most people, they have to wake up and hope that the player they want is still available. The good thing is that with Fantasy Roundup, a website where you can link your ESPN or Yahoo Fantasy Hockey account, you no longer have to worry about competing with your league mates for these valuable streamers. That is right, guys. With Fantasy Roundup, you are going to gain a massive edge against your competition in fantasy hockey. You can link your account, like I said. There's a 7-day free trial if you want to check it out. After that, it's $6 a month, but you'll be able to automate your waiver wire pickup, ensure that you get the streamers that you want. I highly recommend it, guys. There's more info in the pinned comments below. Shout out to Fantasy Roundup. Moving on to more teams with a decent schedule this week. We do have a number of teams that play 4 games and have 1 light night. It's not ideal because you're not going to be able to fit and slot these players into Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday unless you really like them. So maybe you only pick up the players from these teams on Monday, but I thought I'd mention it. We have the Devils, the Golden Knights, the Mammoth, the Rangers, and the Red Wings, all with a very good opponent goals against average. And then you have the Blues, the Flyers, the Lightning, and the Predators. Not the best opponent goals against average, but they do have the 4 games and the 1 light night. On the flip side, we have the teams with the least amount of games. Unfortunately, we do have 2 teams that only play twice this week. Those teams being the Seattle Kraken and the Edmonton Oilers. If you want to increase your chances of winning this week, you might have to drop some of those average players from these teams. Obviously, you're not going to be dropping a guy like Zach Hyman, but in terms of some players on the Kraken, maybe a guy like Jordan Eberle or Matty Beniers, and picking up some players with better schedules to replace them. Again, it depends on your league size in terms of how I would recommend doing this, but you might have to drop some of those okay players to maximize your chances of winning this week. I also thought I'd mention that we do have a number of teams with 3 games and 0 light nights. It's okay, but obviously it's not ideal with 0 light nights this week. So just wanted to mention these teams here: the Leafs, the Canadiens, the Sabres, the Wild, the Bruins, the Jets, the Sharks, the Canucks, the Avalanche, and the Penguins. Moving on to the streamers, these are the players here that you're going to want to pick up to maximize your games and in turn maximize your fantasy points or fill your categories. Like I said, the Stars, the Capitals, and the Senators, all these players here, they're under 95% rostered, so it does depend on how big your league is in terms of availability. And the last thing I'll say as well is the value of players depends on your league format. On the second page here, I have Liam Bichsel. If your league values hits, if you're in a bangers league, then he would shoot up to the top of this list, right? But if your league doesn't count hits at all, then he's not worth a look. So something to keep in mind. With that being said, we have Rupe Hintz, Tom Wilson, Dylan Strome, Drake Batherson, John Carlson, all very high rostered, so only going to be available in more shallow leagues. You have Dylan Cousins, who's probably the best player in terms of availability. He's like 50% rostered, top 6 power play 1. Claude Giroux is also a great option as well because he is in the top 6. He is on power play 1. We'll see if Brady Tkachuk returns this week because he would be bumping Giroux off power play 1, I would imagine. But we'll see there, guys. Could be a great stream this week. Alexi Protas, not on power play 1, but he gets a lot of ice time, even strength. Tyler Seguin, line 2 with Robo and Rupe Hintz, and also power play 2, so he could be solid. We got Liam Bichsel for those hits. We got some of those third line guys that get okay ice time: Connor McMichael, Shane Pinto, Jamie Benn who is line one right now with Mikko Rantanen and Wyatt Johnson. Could be a decent stream this week. We'll see if he's getting ramped up with ice time, though, because he just returned. We have Fabian Zetterlund for those peripherals. Ryan Leonard, his ice time isn't great, but it's increasing. He's a young, promising player. We'll see. That's more of a deeper league option. Ridley Greig, deeper league option, of course, but his ice time is solid. David Perron, who's on the first line, so not a terrible option, but again, you're just doing this for these off nights, guys, or light nights, I should say. And then on the last page, we have a lot of peripheral guys, a lot of defensemen: Rasmus Sandin, Artem Zub, Esa Lindell, Martin Farivari, Matt Roy. It's good if your points league counts these peripherals, or if you're in a category league, if you want to fill those categories. And then we have some very deep options forward-wise: Anthony Beaulivier and Maverick Bourque. Moving on, I want to talk about the teams with the easiest and hardest schedule for skaters. We'll start off with the easiest. These are teams that are playing teams this week that let in a lot of goals, so there is a chance that the forwards and defensemen overperform. These teams are the Penguins, the Kings, the Devils, the Golden Knights, the Mammoth, the Rangers, the Avalanche, the Stars, the Kraken, the Blackhawks, the Capitals, and the Red Wings. Then for the hardest, we have the Carolina Hurricanes. Very tough schedule. We have the Oilers, the Leafs, the Canadiens, the Flames, the Sabres, the Wild, the Predators, the Lightning, the Flyers, the Bruins, and the Jets. Moving on to goalies. The easiest schedule for goalies. These goalies are playing teams this week that don't score a lot of goals. These teams are the Panthers, the Lightning, the Hurricanes, the Devils, the Bruins, the Blackhawks, the Blues, the Red Wings, the Oilers, the Senators, the Stars, and the Sabres. On the flip side, the hardest schedule for goalies. These are teams that are playing teams this week that score a lot of goals, so could be tough. Wouldn't recommend rostering some goalies on these teams for the entire week. The Sharks, again, also due for some regression there, so Askarov could have a pretty bad week. We also have the Canadiens. That is tough. They're pretty banged up. We have the Wild, we have the Jackets, the Kings, the Capitals, the Flames, the Leafs, the Rangers, the Golden Knights, the Mammoth, and the Canucks. Before we get into some deployment updates, I want to give a shout out to Underdog Fantasy. If you guys sign up on there using promo code FIREDUP and you play $5, you get $100 in bonus funds. This is a daily fantasy sports platform where you can do pick'ems and best ball drafts on the NHL, NFL, NBA, and more. It's available in all of Canada except Ontario. It's also available in most US states. And yeah, there's more info in the comments below. Moving on to some big deployment updates. Adam Fantilli is still first line power play 1. That is huge. Vincent Trocheck moved up to power play 1. Will Cooley is power play 2. For some defensemen here, Darren Radish, Hedman's out for multiple weeks. So yeah, this is a priority ad. Hampus Lindholm McAvoy is out. He had surgery, probably out for a month, if not more. So absolutely a priority ad as well, because he's going to be on power play 1. Morgan Riley has been moved up to power play 1. That's interesting. Ekman Larson has been good. So we'll see what happens when everyone's healthy, when Nyes and Matthews return. We'll see what they do there, but something to watch out for if you own one of these guys. We also have Braden Bowman here. Told you guys about him last week. They actually moved him up to line 1, and he is still power play 1. So absolutely worth a look. Super under rostered at 4%. Is he a long-term hold? Probably not, because Mark Stone will eventually return. But yeah, definitely a under-rostered guy, to say the least. We also have Zachary Bolduc moved up to line 1 and power play 1. Don't know how long that's going to last, but if it sticks, that's obviously big for his fantasy value. We have Barrett Hayden, who's been moved up to power play 1. They actually have Cooley and Peterka on power play 2, and that sort of concerns me that they might run a 1A, 1B power play a little bit, especially in the last game that I saw. The time on ice percentage split on the power play was pretty even between the two units. So we'll see what happens there, but good for Barrett Hayden in fantasy. Obviously not so good for Cooley and JJ Peterka. Or I guess it's good for Peterka because he might be getting some more power play time, but not good for Cooley. We also have Beckett Seneke of the Anaheim Ducks. Moved up to power play 1, Cutter Gauthier to power play 2. Don't really understand why they're doing this. Obviously good for Seneke, not good for Gauthier, but it's also not good for those top Ducks guys as well, because if you're looking at the time on ice split in the last game, it's pretty even. So there's concern that they're doing a 1A, 1B power play, which hasn't been the case for the entire season. So a little bit concerned there for those Ducks guys. We'll see what happens. Andrei Kuzmenko, power play 1 over Quentin Byfield. Corey Perry still power play 1. Obviously not good for Quentin Byfield. I get why you have Kuzmenko on there because that's his bread and butter, but yeah, I just don't understand keeping Byfield off the top unit with the skill that he has. And then we also have Axel Sandin Pellikka moved up to power play 1, Sider to power play 2. This is pretty big. Sandin Pellikka, he doesn't put up peripherals, so he's more of a deeper league ad, but this is huge bad news for Seider owners, guys. Seider, it's really going to hurt his value if this sticks. He might only be like a 30 to 35 point guy without power play one. So very, very concerning. Then I'll mention that Jack Roslovic has been taken off power play one last game in favor of Adam Henrique. I don't think Henrique is going to be on power play one for more than a handful of games this season. So not really, I don't put too much stock into that. But the concern with this is that if they're taking him off for Henrique, then there's no way that he would stay on power play one when everyone's healthy, with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins back in about a week or so. It seems like they're going to go back to their normal power play one with Hyman and Nugent-Hopkins when everyone's healthy. So yeah, it might be time to sell high on Roslovic if you can. Some other deployment updates. This is more for deeper leagues. The Sharks have been switching up their power play. They took Toffoli off there. They had Orlov on there because Klingberg was injured, but then Klingberg came back and Klingberg got back on there. But mid-game, they went to a 5-forward unit, so it's hard to say, but Wenberg is getting some more time on power play one, so he might be worth a look in those deeper leagues. Danila Yurov, the rookie on the Minnesota Wild, he is line one, centering that line with Kaprizov and Zuccarello because Hartman's out week to week, Ross is out week to week. So, in those deeper leagues, definitely worth a look. Nick Paul is back. He's healthy. Tampa Bay Lightning. He's in the top 6. Again, deeper league option. And also Arseny Griciuk is line one with Hischier and Bratt. Getting a lot of ice time, guys. So, even though he's not power play one, the ice time that he's getting is very good. So definitely worth a look. In terms of some short-term deployment changes, Calle Yarncrow and then Easton Cohen is power play one right now because you have Matthews and Eyes out. So yeah, this is only going to be very short term. I wouldn't really take a look at them. Andre Burakovsky seems to be concussed, so Frank Nazar is back in power play one. Maybe if Nazar starts producing on there, they'll keep him on there. So good news for him maybe. And then Mate Blumel is power play one right now with Victor Arvidsson and Elias Lindholm out. But Lindholm will be returning soon. So this is going to be short-lived. I also mentioned with the Canucks that Kiefer Sherwood and Garland seem to be fighting for power play one. I think ultimately it's going to be Garland, but in the last game we did see some reps from Sherwood on that top unit, so something to keep an eye out for. I also mentioned that the Kraken are running a more dedicated power play one. This is very different compared to what they were doing in the last couple of years. They're giving more timeshare to this first unit. So good news for these players specifically. Vince Dunn, Matty Beniers, Jordan Eberle, Chandler Stevenson, and Eli Tolvanen. The last that I'll mention here is with goalies. The deployment update is that Connor Hellebuck is out 4 to 6 weeks. So I would absolutely grab Eric Comrie. That ship may have sailed if you're in a more competitive league. If you follow me on Twitter, then maybe not because you're going to get that up-to-date information. But yeah, I would absolutely take a look. If you do need a goalie, right? Obviously, this is a short-term ad. It's only 4 to 6 weeks, so you don't want to be dropping a legit goalie for Eric Comrie, but I do think he's going to be solid in this time frame. So absolutely take a look. I'll also mention some injury stuff here. Zach Benson is returning this week. He's under-rostered. It could be line one power play one. Josh Norris is going to be returning soon. He's only 13% rostered. Roman Josi, Brady Tkachuk, Elias Lindholm, Jared McCann, all returning soon. They're skating, so good news for those guys. Matthew Tkachuk could be back late December, early January. Is a good buy low for sure if the owner that has him is not doing too well and they need immediate help. And then Matthews and Nyes are skating, and they're going to be returning soon as well. Moving on to some under-rostered forward ads. I just want to highlight players that I think are under-rostered. I'm trying to cut down the section a little bit because there's so many players I could talk about depending on league format and league settings and league size. So I just want to highlight the players that I believe should be higher rostered. Arturi Lehkonen, line one, power play one. With Natchez and McKinnon, if Lehkonen can stay healthy, he can easily put up 70-plus points with this deployment. Obviously, Nichushkin may throw a wrench into that with the power play deployment, but still, guys, he needs to be higher rostered, in my opinion. You also have Vincent Trocheck, only 66% roster, line one with Panarin. Move back up to power play one. They scored 2 power play goals the first night he was back on that top unit, so I expect him to stay there. Definitely should be higher rostered. Then you have Svechnikov, who's still line one, power play one. Adam Fantilli, guys. I could go on about Adam Fantilli in terms of the type of player that I think he is. I think he's a fantastic young player, has a very bright future, especially in fantasy, guys, because he puts up great shots, hits, and blocks. He is a pure center, I get it, but line one with Marchenko, who is an absolute beast, one of my favorite players to watch in the NHL. he is still power play one, guys. Ken Johnson is in the lineup. He hasn't been scratched. They just prefer Fantilli on this top unit at the moment. It's been like 5 games. So I think Fantilli's roster percentage should be, 65% and 70% rostered, maybe even higher as the season goes on. So definitely still a must-add forward. Matt Zuccarello, guys, I told you as soon as we got an injury update to add this guy when his roster percentage was like 8%. Talked about it in my videos. I talked about it on Twitter. It's at 28%, so it's getting up there, but it should still be higher, being stapled to Kirill Kaprizov, even strength, and on the power play. So still worth a look. Anton Lundell, only 36% rostered. Yes, I get it. He's a pure center, but the deployment cannot be ignored. Line 1, power play 1, elite ice time, good peripherals. It's a no-brainer. Should be like 55 to 60%, I believe. Matt Coronado, shooting the puck a ton, great deployment lately. Line 1, power play 1, 15% rostered. Braden Bowman, line 1 with Jack Eichel, power play 1. Obviously, long-term could be an issue because when Mark Stone returns, Bowman might not even be in the lineup. But at 4% rostered, he's definitely worth a look, especially in some of those deeper leagues, like 12 teams or more, where it's hard to find these type of guys on the wire. Also, Josh Norris, this is a stash. He's skating in a non-contact jersey. There is a chance he could return in a week or two. Don't have an exact timeline, but could be line 1, power play 1, good peripherals, like in terms of hits, 13% rostered. Jordan Eberle, his roster percentage is pretty low for what he's doing. He's getting the most ice time he's gotten in like 10 years. They're running a more dedicated power play 1. He's shooting the puck. So I do think his roster percentage should probably be like 30% instead of 15. But yeah, that's why I wanted to include him. And then I'll say Zach Benson as well. He's returning this week, I believe. I think he's going to return Sunday against Carolina. He is only 13% rostered. He could be line 1, power play 1. So I think this is under rostered. I also mentioned some deeper league ads. This is mainly deployment and some injury returns. Beckett Seneke has been moved up to power play 1. I don't know if it's going to stick, so don't go dropping a good player for this guy, but the deployment is great and the Ducks are a decent team. So yeah, should be higher rostered. Barrett Hayden, only 2% rostered. I know he's only a pure center, but he's line 1 with Keller, and they moved him up to power play 1. Last season, we saw stretches of months where Barrett Hayden was on this top unit, and we've seen him have really hot streaks, really big hot streaks. So yeah, this should definitely be higher. We also have Zach Bolduc moved up to line 1, power play 1. I say it could change here in brackets because I think there's a chance next game they could just move Demidov, up to power play 1 again. So again, I'm not too sure about this, but I had to mention this with the deployment, playing with Caulfield and Suzuki and on that power play and putting up good hits as well. Could be worth a look and could be really good if this sticks. We also have Arsenio Gritsiak, who's line 1 with Heischer and Brad, so he's worth a look in a 14-team league. Eli Tolvanen puts up amazing peripherals, obviously, so maybe he's more rostered in a more shallow Banners league, but he's getting power play 1 time. His peripherals are great. He's only 11% rostered. He can get hot. He has the ability to get on streaks for sure in the last couple of years. Jason Zucker, he's healthy. He's only 4% rostered, puts up good hits, and they seem to love him on power play 1. So he should definitely be higher rostered. Jake Neighbors, this is mainly for hits, but he is only 18% rostered. So if he's been dropped in some of those hit leagues, I would take a look. Danila Urov, like I said earlier, line 1 with Kaprizov, centering that line with Rossi and Hartman out week to week. So at only 2% rostered, definitely worth a look. And then Nick Paul in the top 6. He's only like a 45-point player, but in those really deep leagues, he could be worth a look. Moving on to some defenseman ads. Rasmus Anderson has been amazing. The peripherals are obviously great, but he is firmly taken over power play 1. Zane Prex out week to week. Uyghur is kind of cooked. So yeah, I think even at 62% rostered, he still should be higher roster in my opinion. Darren Radish, this one's a huge must-add defenseman in terms of availability, guys. 5% rostered. Hedman is going to be out for a couple of weeks. So if you own Hedman, then this is the guy to have. If you just need a defenseman for a couple of weeks, then definitely take a look. His peripherals are solid too. He's going to be with Kucherov and Gensel and Point on the top power play unit. We also have Hampus Lindholm. McAvoy is out. He had facial surgery, took a puck to the face. I don't know the exact timeline. I think it's going to be at least a month, potentially even more. So Lindholm is the guy in power play 1. Only 9% rostered. I get it. His peripherals aren't that great, but definitely should be higher rostered. And then with some deeper league guys, Artyom Levshinov. Maybe you can roster him in a 10-team league depending on how bad your team is. I think Levshinov's going to be solid, but the ice time needs to get better. Like, he's only getting like 16, 17, 18 minutes of ice time per game. But it seems like he has a firm hold on power play one. So definitely still a under roster defenseman. We also have Brand Clark, not a power play one guy, but Drew Doughty's out for a couple of weeks, and we've seen Clark's ice time shoot up considerably. So he definitely sees an increase to his fantasy value. And then finally, Axel Sandin Pellikka. His peripherals are atrocious, and his even strength ice time is not the best, but he has been moved up to power play one. It's a stacked power play. There's no like 1A, 1B. It's a dedicated first unit. So that does increase his fantasy value, especially if you're in a league that doesn't heavily value peripherals. At only 3% rostered, he is definitely under rostered. Finally, with goalies, Eric Comrie, I talked about him earlier. Hellebuck's out 4 to 6 weeks, so that's obviously big. He's going to see probably a lot of volume on a good team. Akira Schmidt has been getting volume, seems to be the number one guy with Aiden Hill out month to month. We'll see what happens when Carter Hart returns, but still worth a look and still under rostered. We also have Joseph Woll. Stolers is injured for who knows how long. Could be maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Could be earlier than that, but Stolers has also not been good. So Joseph Woll could be sort of the 1A goalie on a good team. I know the Leafs haven't been good, but they're still a good team in my opinion. We also have Jesper Wallstedt. Play much better than Philip Gustafsson. It's not like Philip Gustafsson has been terrible, but Wallstedt has been an absolute unit. So they have to keep giving him starts, and it might be a split, if not a 1A for Wallstedt. We also have Dan Vladar. This is more of a volume play. Samuel Ersson has not been good. Compare the two stats between those two goalies, guys. Vladar is going to be getting the more starts. And then we also have Jet Greaves. Now, the only reason Jet Greaves was getting all these starts is because Elvis was sick, but he has been better. So maybe the coaching staff will realize that Greaves is a better goalie, and he could sort of get more volume. So he's worth a look as well. And Joey Daccord is healthy. So if he was dropped, he might be worth a look. All right, guys, this was recorded Friday evening around 4 p.m. I will comment below any big changes that we see from Friday and Saturday's games. But make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And I will catch you in the next one.